Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Mountain West Hoops Insider. Excited to be here with my man Eli after week one. Eli, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? I'm excited to get back going.
Yeah, we had some games even last night. It's been nonstop, of course, for college basketball fans to continue to follow all the action in college basketball. Excited to talk Mountain West. What were some of your thoughts from opening week so far?
Yeah, it's been a busy few days. We've got games on every single day since the season tipped off on Wednesday. A lot of big games out of the gate. We've got UNLV playing their next game at Maui tonight. First one got off to a little bit of a rough start against a very good UNC team. So we'll monitor what they do there. Nevada's 3-0. San Diego State's 2-0 with a couple nice wins that you see. Nevada looked really good with Grant Sherfield and Desmond Cambridge. That was pretty impressive on their end. Utah State had some struggles in South Dakota, so that's something to monitor. I think we've discussed on this show that they've got some things to iron out as the season goes along. But overall, I mean, it's just good to have these games back. It's good to see some of the new guys competing out there, and I think it will be a pretty promising year for the Mountain West once everyone kind of gets their feet under them.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and look forward to just more teams getting in action. And like everyone else in the country, the more you get to play, the more everyone settles into their teams and kind of figures out how to make the pieces work that they have. So we'll kind of get straight into it. So today's show, we have some special guests. We have 3 coaches from the Mountain West coming on today. We're going to have one of them on in about 15 minutes, and then the rest of them the next hour of the show. They'll be on back-to-back, so stay tuned for that. We won't tell you who they are until they come on, so looking forward to that. And then we'll also just cover the league from team by team. We'll talk real quick about the Mountain West kind of gave some recognitions yesterday. I'll let Eli kind of talk about that real quick.
Yeah, Matt Mitchell earned the league's first Player of the Week honors. He had a really good performance against UCLA. That was a pretty hard-nosed game, but San Diego State really showed up and played well. Matt Mitchell's a guy that I looked at as the probable Player of the Year pick in the conference. I think that it's his turn to really take the lead with the Aztecs, and he did a great job out of the gates, and I think we'll see that continue as his role expands within the team. So he'll be the first to win Player of the Week honors in the conference. There are a lot of guys, honestly, who deserved honors this past week, but it goes to Mitchell, and we know for sure it won't be the last time he wins the award this season.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of guys deserve some recognition. Who are some of the other guys you thought, Eli?
Yeah, I think Grant Sherfield's the first one that comes to mind. He performed really well out of the gates to help Nevada move to 3-0, hitting a really key shot against Nebraska. He played really well last night against Pacific. He leads most of the conference's stats. I know he leads in steals, field goal attempts. Want to say he's up there in points as well, and also assists. So that was one of the guys who I really wanted to monitor heading into the season because Nevada, as we mentioned here 2 weeks ago, they lost so much in the offseason and in their backcourt. And so they needed Sherfield, Wichita State transfer, to really step up, and he's fit like a glove so far. So I'll be monitoring what he does moving forward, but I think Nevada fans really have a sense of relief knowing that he's kind of the guy for the future for them.
Yeah, and Sherfield, I always like to mention our Texas guys. He played high school basketball in Texas. Know Sherfield a little bit myself. Didn't recruit him, wasn't blessed with that. He actually committed to Coach Alford young in his career when he was at UCLA, early in his career, and then ended up decommitting after Coach Alford changed schools, ends up signing Wichita State. Coach Alford goes to Nevada, and now they're back together like they're meant to be. So cool story there on that. So let's just dive in. Let's go straight to talking a little bit about Air Force.
Yeah, so it was kind of a mixed bag for Air Force out of the gates. I think that we expected them to have a little bit of some offensive struggles, and that was the case so far with the Falcons. I think that it's going to be a bit of a turning page for them. They started things off with a win against Northridge. That's a decent game under their belt. And then Sunday against Seattle, losing by 18, not the result that you want. But one of the things that I was surprised by on this show, I mentioned I'm kind of curious what the depth will look like on Air Force, because They just are going to be very young, and they have a lot of these freshmen and newcomers coming in. But to my surprise, it was a pretty short bench that Joe Scott went with. I think that he only gave 2 or 3 guys off the bench some minutes against Northridge, and I think it was Walker and Keaton Van Solen who both played almost the entire game. So that will be something to see how that progresses as the season goes along, because Air Force, I think, is known for having a really deep bench and bringing a lot of fresh guys in, trying to get the fresh legs and everything. So that hasn't been the case so far, but I think that as the season goes along, we'll see some new guys try to cement their roles as the season goes on.
Yeah, what did you see or what did you notice in box score from the game that they won against Northridge? Northridge, I believe, just got a pretty good win within the last couple of days as well. So Mark Godfrey's team is normally talented. I think they have a preseason player of the year possibly for their conference on their team. So still a good win, even though it's early. All these wins are good right now with COVID. Talk a little bit about what you saw that was good from that game.
Yeah, I think Chris Joyce, leading scorer at 23 points, he's going to be their go-to guy. I think he's the team's leading returning scorer, and he's had some good moments in pretty key situations for Air Force in the past, hitting some clutch shots, and he's also had some good performances at the Mountain West tournament the last couple of years. He delivered and brought some offense to the team when some other guys weren't hitting shots. So I think that he's going to take the lead in terms of the scoring load moving forward, but it's going to always be important that this team has a solid number 2 or number 3 option. And I think that Nick Jackson might be that, Keaton Van Solen might be that. You have a number of these players who I think just haven't quite gotten used to some substantial roles. They've been able to more so come off the bench or play some minutes here and there. But I think once they're comfortable with that, I think that they'll be pretty solid moving forward, especially if they get these types of performances out of Joyce.
Yeah, for sure. It always takes some time adjusting with new coach, new staff, kind of new elements to all get in place. So, yeah, congratulations to Air Force on their first win of the season for Coach Scott, and we know there'll be more for them this year. Let's transition to let's talk a little bit Boise State. Boise State had a tough beginning playing against Houston. Houston is now proven to be one of the best teams in the country. They've moved in the top 10 on the polls. Just had a big game against Texas Tech where they pretty much controlled the entire way. Boise, looking back after seeing them play against Texas Tech, after seeing Houston play against Texas Tech, you can tell that Boise actually probably played a little better than what maybe people thought after seeing how good Houston is. What were some of your thoughts on Boise kind of coming out of the gate?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, bringing in what happened against Texas Tech. Houston's a really good team. They play fantastic defensively, and that was certainly on the show on Boise State in the opening matchup. I think the surprise here was that they were able to hold Derek Alston scoreless, not something that I expected, although I did kind of anticipate that he would have a pretty challenging matchup just because Kelvin Sampson and that whole Houston team just played so stout defensively. But it was a struggle offensively for Boise State, and even though that wasn't a surprise, I think scoring 58 points and whatever it was, probably like 65, 66 possessions, it's not what you want to see right out of the gates. But on the opposite end, I think that this team has a lot of talent and a lot of potential in the scoring category, and opening things up with Houston, that's about as hard as it gets just because the Cougars play so challenging defensively. But it's good to see some of the additions show up. Marcus Shaver had a quality game against Houston. Ray J. Dennis also played pretty well. And then against Sam Houston State, they looked much better, even though Sam Houston State obviously not on the same level defensively as Boise State. But Derek Alston was his usual self, scoring 27 points. And then you also had 3 other guys finish in double figures. So you kind of have a mixed bag here. You want to see the Mountain West and Boise State in particular, who a lot of people expected was going to be good heading into the season. You want to see them be competitive in these types of games. It was a rough one out of the gates again for Boise State, but I think now that they have that first one under their belt, it should get easier from here.
Yeah, Derek Alston on his tour going back home. Derek Alston's actually from Houston. played high school ball in Houston. I'm always taking notice to the Texas guys from my time recruiting in Texas and just coaching in Texas, and that's home for me. So always keeping tabs on those guys. It's just a tough game out of the gate to play a team when you haven't played against other competition. You haven't, as a coach, you haven't played against any scrimmages. You haven't played any exhibitions. So you really haven't had that dress rehearsal. So for your first dress rehearsal to be against Houston and a top 10 team, probably a top 5 team essentially in some people's mind, because their best player or leading scorer, Caleb Mills, hasn't even really played for them yet because he's battling an injury. So to have that be your first time out, really challenging to be able to really put your best foot forward. So we know Boise will get things going. Like I said, that first game getting punched in the mouth by Houston, not an easy one to respond to, but they did a good job in their next one, and I'm sure they'll continue to build. They have a lot of new players as well, still getting acclimated to everything that they have going on. So we know that we'll look for big things. They're picked, of course, to be one of the teams to compete at the top with San Diego State for this conference. So I'm sure they'll continue to build as they get acclimated to their new players. What's a little bit on?
It's going to take some time. Oh.
No, I was just to say, not only whatever you're going to say about whatever's going to take time, but what's some of the stuff on the slate for them in the upcoming week?
Yeah, it's not going to get any easier. They've got the first upcoming game against BYU, the former Mountain West rival. That's going to be interesting, particularly because of how BYU has started out, and they're going to be a really tough team out of the WCC once again. That's a pretty intriguing matchup, and that's going to be at Utah. So going to be the first true matchup against one of these West Coast powers in BYU. I think that this could be one of those games where we find out where this Boise State team is in terms of how well they can score the ball again against a pretty good defensive team. And BYU, I know it's not the same roster that they had last year, but Mark Pope's teams are going to be able to shoot pretty well, and that's been the case. They've scored over 80 points in each of their matchups so far. That's going to be a challenging matchup for them. So I'm curious how they respond because, as you mentioned, blew out Houston, had that tough matchup against Houston and then blew out Sam Houston State. So they've performed, I guess, relative to what we expected, but BYU is going to be a challenging task for them. And I think that if they can step up in that one, I think a lot of people feel better about picking them either first or second in the conference.
Yeah, BYU, one of the better teams, like you said, on the West Coast, and it'll definitely be a tough matchup. And, like we always talk about, teams usually continue to get better as they go on in the year. These early games are great tests, and you can have some great wins early, but it doesn't necessarily define your season one way or the other. We know Coach Rice will continue to build them up and they'll continue to play better the more comfortable they get, but definitely some great early tests today to be able to figure out exactly where they're standing early on. We're going to take a quick break. We got a special guest coming to us from the Mountain West Team of the Week by far to start the year. We have a special guest coming on. We'll start after a quick break, and we'll be right back. I want to take time to acknowledge one of our partners, Rising Coaches. Every coach wants to rise in their career in one way or another. We're all looking for professional development, access to tools, and relationships that can help us grow and help us advance in our career. Rising Coaches provides just that. You can visit Rising Coaches at www.risingcoaches.com. Their memberships are just $10 a month and provides a genuine community to help you grow and advance in your career.
Welcome to All Access Coaches Corner, where our mission is to serve coaches, share their stories, and spotlight their programs with our host, Brian Burton. A longtime successful college basketball coach, former championship collegiate point guard, husband, and father, Brian is now the Vice President of Rising Coaches Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Alliance for men's basketball, an empowerment coach and founder of B3 Legacy Sports and the All Access Network. Sports broadcaster and host for All Access Coaches Corner and All Access Sports Media, Coach Burton is now using his successes, experiences, and connections to be a point guard in the sports industry at all levels, with a mission to help others to further their success. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
Thanks again for joining us. We're going to let Eli talk a little bit about this team and this what they've done, San Diego State, to start the season, and then we'll bring in our special guest.
Yeah, so San Diego State's off to a 2-0 start. I think that getting that first quality win in the bag against UCLA is just huge news for them. Aztecs really used a quality non-conference performance last year to put together one of the best seasons that we've seen in this conference's history. So securing that first one against UCLA, it's going to really make a statement, and I think try to smooth some of the waters here because, again, it's another team in the Mountain West that has some roster turnover with Malachi Flynn leaving, with KJ Fagan leaving. So having that first one in the bag is good. And moving forward, I think we'll expect San Diego State to, again, be a team that can shoot the basketball from the perimeter and also just really defend and get after it, which was certainly on display against UCLA. So, again, Aztecs, our team of the week, I would assume, really performing well from here. And so we'll expect what they do here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, talk real quick before we bring in our guest. Talk real quick about kind of the schedule they have upcoming and what you see maybe being some challenges or some teams that can actually give them a test. I know they felt like they had a really tough schedule, tougher than normal that they've had. Talk a little bit about that real quick, E.
Yeah, there's a really good stretch, or a quality stretch of games here in mid-December, going on the road against Arizona State. That's going to be a huge matchup because Sun Devils have what could be the best backcourt in the nation, just led by some really quality players. Remy Martin's been great out of the gates. Josh Christopher has also been a really talented scorer. And then San Diego State, again, like Boise State, will play BYU. That's a team that has a number of common opponents with the conference this season. And then also neutral site game against St. Mary's. So that stretch of 3 games, if you go 3-0 in that stretch, you really start having that conversation about San Diego State lining up all of these quality wins to get a quality seed. So again, it's a bit in the distance here. I know that we're just here on the first day of December, but I think San Diego State, again, has a schedule where you can kind of control your own destiny. If you pick up good wins, then it really dictates what the rest of the season looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And to get that first win against UCLA, like we talked about, and even to beat a really good Irvine team who's picked to win the top of their league. You got 2 teams that were picked to win the championship in their respective conferences on the West Coast. So definitely an awesome start to it. We'll get straight to it and bring our guest in. Let's get a drum roll if we can get one. Yeah, we'll bring in Coach.
The drum roll is the last thing that's needed right now.
James giving us good representation from San Diego State. I think we're in his closet, if I'm not mistaken. In the background.
This is a wall in the bedroom.
I love it. It wouldn't be right any other way. And of course, if you don't know, the Jumpman is not just him representing MJ. He's still representing his squad over there. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about San Diego State hoops. You guys obviously had a big week. We'll talk more about the staff and what you do, but let's talk just straight up about the weekend.
It was big. I mean, the guys were just so excited. You know, like every year at the beginning, no team wants to keep playing each other. So they're ready to play someone else. And that was kind of the dialogue for a while in the locker room. It was like, I don't care who it is. Let's just play and let's try and get games in because we don't know how long we'll get to. And so to get the start that we did, to play with some confidence and some poise, you know, both games actually, you know, about the first 2 to 5 minutes, we got lit up, which is not our identity. So UCLA comes down and hits 2 threes and it's 6-0 and it's like 30 seconds into the game. It's like, okay, we haven't done that in practice lately. And then Irvine, I think they were hitting like, you know, 6 of their first 8 shots or something like that. So either way, we had to dig in both games. Definitely proud of the guys, you know, proud of Matt for winning the award. Congratulations to him. But we've got leadership all over. You know, we've got a veteran team, and that UCLA game was big. But believe me, they were fired up.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that game specifically. I know going into it, there had to be, first game of the season. It's probably what you've been talking about all offseason in a sense of starting the year. Your guys, you know, and sometimes when you play a school that has that kind of prestige, guys kind of look at it like, ooh, we're playing UCLA. But I'm sure your guys were like, yo, we're just as good as them. We can beat them. So what was kind of the mindset for your guys going in to want to prove or to want to show in that particular game?
Yeah, they did. They wanted to prove it for sure. But at the same time, they know pretty much all those guys. You know, they played with them in the summers. They played with them all growing up. And so that kind of takes away, you know, maybe what that jersey can do to some other guys, some other teams out there also, is it's like, that's my buddy over there. And we didn't find out until, you know, right at warmups that Johnny was out and Jalen Hill was out. And obviously those are huge pieces for them. They're going to be really, really dangerous when they hit the court. So I hope they get healthy soon. But it was special to open up there. And then even Coach Palmer over on the other sideline, you know, we're all close with him after having spent a year with us. And so it was kind of a fun way to start. I know Dutch and Coach Mick Cronin are super close, so I was glad that they worked it out. But we knew we had to be ready. I mean, they crashed the glass hard. Chris Smith's as real as they come. They got shooters. You know, Jaquez is real. Tiger runs the show. So, you know, we needed to be able to play. And rebounding was a big emphasis. And then, like Dutch has talked about in some of his articles and press conferences, is we're deep. You know, we're 10 deep. So that was the first time we tried it. And I think over games we're just gonna not hockey sub, but we're gonna run waves at people of deep numbers. If we play 10, then they might wear down towards the end of the games, which is a new philosophy for us.
Yeah, I'm curious about that a little bit, because that was something that I noticed against UCLA, and then also especially in the Irvine game, kind of going into that deeper bench, and last year's team obviously being really senior oriented and with experience and things like that, it might not have been what you wanted to do. Is that going to be something that you expect will be something that you keep throughout the season, trying to keep that deep bench, or is it just kind of testing guys out of the gates?
Yeah, as of right now, the plan is to try it. You know, I think guys deserve minutes. I think that, you know, we have 2 fifth-year seniors that have been in a lot of games. I mean, Josh Tomias didn't get the minutes he wanted at Maryland, but he's been coached for 4 years, you know, under a great coach, under a great program. He's got championship rings. His Maryland one is shipped to him right now. And Terrell Gomez has played as many minutes as I think anybody in the country in 4 years. So, you know, they deserve time. And Trey Pulliam probably deserved more time last year than he got, but he's playing behind a first-round pick. And KJ Fagan had, you know, a crazy career at Santa Clara before coming. And so when you look at this year's team, it's built different. You know, we don't have guys that need to be out there 38 minutes. And, you know, we'll get led by our seniors, you know, Matt Mitchell and Jordan Shackle, and, you know, even Adam Seiko is a redshirt junior, so he's still been here for 4 years. And I mean, I think I've already named like 9 guys, so it just adds up real quick like that, and it is different for us. You know, we've played guys like when Jalen McDaniels was here, we played heavy minutes, and Trey Kell, and, you know, all these guys over my time here anyway, 3-4 years, and now in my 4th year. Yeah, the plan is to try and wear guys down, to keep fresh legs, and we're going to try and get after it. You know, I mean, I didn't even mention Aguaka Rope, who starts for us. You know, he's like our main motor guy, as he's a utility knife for Dutch. So he guards 1 through 5, and Keyshawn Johnson's coming on fast. Like, I don't know how we can keep these guys on the bench right now and just be like, yeah, just keep waiting. You know, they've earned it. So it'll be tough to figure out the minutes, but they deserve time.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the questions that I have for sure, and it was watching the games over the weekend, I think just settling into the normal game atmosphere is something that we all kind of expected. But I think just knowing what Viejas is like with the crowd there, with the show, I think it was especially obvious to me to the first game that really kind of hit me, and understanding that this is what it looks like with no fans in the stands. Obviously, that's the elephant in the room, what this is like. I guess just what is it like playing during these times, and what is it like having these types of games when you're used to being in front of a sellout crowd and now playing in front of 0 people?
Yeah, absolutely. It was different. The guys were talking about it and trying to have fun with it because they were just so excited to play. It's like, man, either way, UCLA's down there. You know, either way, Irvine's down there, and they win the ring, you know, every other year in that conference. They've got a great streak going. And so they were plenty motivated, but then every once in a while, I mean, I heard multiple guys in layup lines being like, this place would be going insane if UCLA was here and the show was here. They were like, you wouldn't be able to hear me right now. They were saying all those things. So they definitely acknowledged it, but they were ready to play. And, we've got some crowd noise and stuff like a lot of people in the country are trying. And I mean, at first I was a little mixed on it because I thought it'd be almost like a video game, but it ended up kind of giving it a little bit of an environment, but definitely different. We've got our cardboard cutouts in the first 10 rows around the arena. My wife and my little baby are there, and Coach Dutch's family's on the front row. So, I mean, it's different. There's just no other way to say it, but at least we're playing. That's how we end pretty much every sentence, because every day someone shut down and every day a game's canceled. So it's like, we are not going to complain, but yeah, it would have been rocking if the show was in there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I guess one of the other things worth mentioning here, one of the things that I kind of looked at heading into the season with San Diego State is that transition from a guy like Malachi Flynn now going to Terrell Gomez. What do you think goes into, I mean, obviously they have very different styles of play, but I was really impressed by how Gomez played defensively against UCLA. There's been a lot of questions about that, what he's going to bring defensively, and obviously a lot of people bring up his size, but I thought he really brought a physical nature in that game. And I guess just what do you expect for him moving forward, and what is that kind of like going from Malachi Flynn's skill set now over to Gomez's skill set?
Yeah, it's different. Tigo was asked to do a lot at Northridge, and then the majority of it was get buckets. We need you to score, and then we'll stay in games, and we'll get our other guys to get some shots too. But I mean, he needed to get those 19 that he averaged. He needed to lead the country in free throw percentage. And for us, he's been vocal about how much he likes it, how different it is. He's learning a whole new scheme. We do guard completely different than his former school and probably a lot of schools out there, because it's a huge emphasis. But he's really enjoyed it. We're definitely proud of him. He's a fighter. He didn't make it this far on accident, and so he's not about to get some new coaching and all of a sudden take his foot off the gas and say, what is this? Let me just go get 30, which he can still do here too. But he's enjoyed the coaching. He's enjoyed the challenge. He asks questions like crazy. I mean, his reputation far preceded him when he came here. As we knew, he's so diligent. He's so organized. He keeps his room spotless. He gets great grades. He's my academic guy. And I think I went 2 weeks and I was like, hey, I'm supposed to be talking to you about academics, but I know that it's okay. So how's everything going? And he was like, oh, you're my academic coach. But he doesn't miss anything. He's not going to. And so he's like that on the floor, is that if he messes up, he raises his hand and he says, like, dang, that's me, as opposed to trying to tell somebody else, like, you got to help or you got to rotate, like he's a mature kid. He's a fighter and he just wants it. So, yeah, we were proud of him against UCLA. I mean, obviously there's going to be times in a mismatch, that's any game. And that's not just a Terrell Gomez thing. That's last year with Malachi, it's like if he gets put on Keita or on Carvacho or something, we're like, yeah, we probably need to send help, so that's not just like a him thing. But, there'll be times where we got to come up with something, obviously, if people are trying to exploit something or whatever. I mean, we saw a lot with UCLA that, like the Jaquez and Chris Smith thing, they'll just do, a little handoff or a little rub screen up top and just play ISO at the free throw line. And it's like, well, yeah, Chris is probably going to shoot right over him. Like if we just don't adjust at all, he's going to get right to about 10 to 12 feet and just do a mid range. So, we've got to come up with ideas, but we're excited to have Tigo. He's such a fun kid. He's an absolute flame in practice. Like even against UCLA, he came out pretty confident and ready to go. And those first 3 or 4, I don't think went. And every time he lets it go, I'm like, oh, here we go. He let it go because he's trying to please us. He wants to just move it. He wants to fit in, and that's what Dutch preaches. The whole board just says share the ball, and so he's trying to do that. He's not trying to just come out and gun every time he touches it, even though I personally wouldn't really care. He can let it go if he wants.
Yeah, actually, what I love about Tigo is I actually got a chance to coach against him my first game on the staff at Fresno State. We beat Northridge his freshman year. And kind of going in, you don't have him on the scouting report very high. I mean, he's a high school kid that they took at whatever time they did, but not somebody who you thought was highly touted. But he was by far one of the biggest competitors that we played all season from that first game. Just his will to want to compete to win. And obviously offensively is where he's really gifted. So it comes across as like maybe he's looking to be maybe some people can misinterpret him, but I just looked at it like the dude's competitive. If it's a loose ball or a rebound, he's sprinting to it. He cares about all those little things. And that was when he was a freshman. And it just continuing to watch his evolution. And I know he's one of those guys just from coaching against him in that game and kind of talking to him afterwards. He has a big chip on his shoulder. So I think him coming in to you guys' squad, even though he had options on the transfer market. He could have went a lot of places. He chose to stay with you guys right there at home. But the cool thing to me is that he brings another chip to the program that maybe if some reason somebody may have felt good about last season or maybe somebody's relaxed, which I don't think any of your guys are, he has that chip on his shoulder where he wants to prove, like, not only do I belong at this level, but I want to show people I can win at this level, not just be a player.
Yeah.
Buckets. To me, that's the kind of presence he has.
That's exactly what happened. He came in but he's still such a nice kid. So it's not vocal, it's not like, hey, you guys better get ready. I'm coming for your head today. Like, he's like, oh, hey, how's it going? And then he'll come out and just hit like 3 threes in a row. And he'll be like, good pass. And we're like, you better guard him. That's not on accident, And so, like I said, like him making it here at like 5'8" or whatever he is. I don't know if he's even 5'8", but it did not happen on accident. He has earned everything. So many coaches, even back in high school, I remember watching him back at like the MAP and all this stuff. And like everybody was like, I just love him. I love him. And everywhere he's been, he's made an impact. He's going to make an impact for us. I think people love watching him play because he does play the right way. Like, he's good at getting in the paint and spraying it. He can't just shoot. Like, he can play. And so he'll have to work defensively, which he's more than willing to do. But yeah, in practice, I mean, he came right in and, we like in some drills, we've got like corner threes valued as more, where like they count as 5 points instead of 3 or whatever. And he's just flying down the sideline, like seeking it. And so now there's our transition defense, like we're flying back on defense, which is only going to help. And he still made some, and he's just banging them left and right. And then, we do closeout drills. And if he's, like when you play 1-on-1 and maybe you've hit 2 and you want to back up a step so you don't have to dribble and you just shoot another one, like he's creeping back so he can just keep letting him go, and he's just hitting them like bang, bang. And then all of a sudden now he can use the speed and get by you, and he's created space. So he's definitely explosive, and, that old word like spurtability, like I don't know anybody that can just light it up faster than him. So when you talk about him and Jordan and Matt and Seiko and like all these guys, like we have dangerous shooters, surrounding some talented guys. So I'm excited to see when it just goes like bang, bang, bang. And I'm like, that's what I need to see right there.
Yeah, the transfer market's been really good for kind of getting some difference makers. But you guys have had those guys like Seiko and also Matt Mitchell, who've been there for 4 years, which gives you a different sense of stability and ownership within the program. Talk about stability and ownership. Talk about the staff who's been there for, I think, multiple decades now, and also just talk about your role on the staff and what you do and kind of the staff in general.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, our staff is incredible. It started with Coach Fisher, obviously. I mean, I think that's a nationally known thing. That's not a San Diego thing. Coach Fish built this thing. Coach Dutch was there from day one. He jokes that when Coach Fisher took the job, he said, I need you to come with me, and I need 3 years out of you. I need 3 years before you take another job or want a head job somewhere, because you got to think Dutch had already recruited the entire Fab Five. He already had a national championship ring on his hand too. And, like you just said, like Coach Dutch is in his 21st season, I think, here. And I don't know where you can find that in college basketball other than, other greats, other like Boettger and Kay and all those guys. So he's done some incredible things. Coach Fisher is the absolute best. Before COVID, he still came in the office every single day and just wants to help. You could tell he's so doesn't want to step on Dutch's toes. So he's like, all right, guys, anybody need anything? No? All right, I'm going to go. Does anybody need anything? And we're like, Coach, we're good, man, but it's great seeing you. And so he's still the best. Mark came in every day before COVID. Mark's, he's been here, whatever it is, 17 years. Matt Sorey has been here 20 years. Dave Velasquez with his, walk-on days and managerial days and video days like what I'm in, and then assistant, he's been here like 15, 16 years. So it's one thing if the head coach is there that long. It's another when it's like 4 or 5 guys. And so, I'm just so fortunate to have broken in. to this family, because it really is that. I mean, these guys are family, and I'm starting to feel more and more like that going into my 4th year. It's not like my first year anymore, where it's like I just walk in like, hey, what are you guys doing? I'm new, and so they didn't have turnover for so long, and so when I got here, I was so grateful. My wife and I both, like you said, like with a staff here that long, I think 3 different times, going back to Kawhi's days in 2011, and then Xavier Thames' year, and then this past year, 3 different times they've won 20 games in a row or more. And that to me is insane, to do that, to win 20 games in a row 3 times at the same place, the same staff, basically. That's so impressive to me. So I'm fortunate to be here. I know that every day. My wife plays beach volleyball, and so we had to do all we could to get to California. And so I got here 4 years ago, and my main thing is just to help. Just like any other guy on staff, we help each other. Obviously, I concentrate on certain things. I concentrate on scouting. When we had UCLA, I'm already 2 games down the road, and those type things, like you guys know all about. But
Yep.
So I work with whichever assistant has it. We dive in, and then by the time the team's watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that play a little bit. And so, but I try and dive back into it like the night before. And so I love it. I've always enjoyed scouting. Obviously, I can't, get on the road and recruit or anything like that quite yet here, like I could at Bakersfield or anything. But it's kind of different with COVID anyway, because nobody's on the road. And so, and I have been able to help a little bit, on the phones and talking to coaches around the country. Like you said, the transfer market's where it is now. It's not, it's not, you don't need 5, 6 high school guys to come in every single year. And so it's kind of changed the way recruiting is. I feel like I can still, reach out to contacts, reach out to guys I've worked with in the past, they're just respected guys like yourself, and get info on kids and be able to, chime in and help the staff. But my job's just to help, man. And I feel like I can excel at that here. So I love it.
Yeah, we'll end you with this one, man. Tell me a little bit about, obviously you're going forward. You have the squad. You have a 10-deep type of team. You feel like your team is different from last year. I know there's some disappointment that you didn't get a chance to play last season after having such a magical season, maybe as magical season as anyone in the country in a lot of ways, maybe even in the history of college basketball in a lot of ways. I mean, you guys were rolling at a whole different kind of level. And unfortunately, you don't get to finish that season, right? There's got to be that taste in your mouth. So a lot of those guys are back. Mitchell in particular, who just won recognized for Player of the Week. A lot of people have him as preseason Player of the Year. What's kind of the mindset for your team on the season? Is there kind of like a word mantra that you guys are focused on, or you guys kind of have a taste in your mouth from last year, or you just want to be able to fit? I know it's a new year, but just kind of talk about the mindset of the team as we have you close.
Yeah, for the guys that experience that, I think it's something they'll think about for a long time. I know, I mean, even as a staff, we were thinking about it. So I can only imagine for the guys. That's who, all coaches, you think of them first. And that was so hard. I guess it helps knowing that nobody got to. It wasn't just like we were disqualified or something. I mean, it's so much was out of our hands that you kind of have to just move on. I've heard Matt talk about it. I've heard Jordan talk about it. It did take them a couple weeks to really sink in. One, you got to figure out what's going on, like what's happening. And then 2, it's like, it's just gone. And it was so special. That group was absolutely amazing. I could tell stories on that team forever. They just truly came together and wanted it. And with this year's team, I think there's a feel out process because we're still in COVID. We're practicing in masks. We started 1-on-0, one coach, one player. The coach isn't even allowed to touch the ball, so the guy's running around like the beginning of a video game loading screen, like just running after his own ball. And so, and they hadn't done anything in months, so they're dead tired back when we got here. But the guys are just excited. I guess the thing to say, they're definitely, now that we've played, like you can already feel like, oh, let's go. It's not, it's still a COVID season, and like because Colorado State already had to postpone with us because they had a case or 2 or whatever it may be. So the schedule's fluid, and we added 2 non-D1s, and I think we're trying to, even get a Division I in place of one of those games, because we're getting calls and we're calling people, and we want a tough schedule like you already brought up. But I think getting started, I think the UCLA game and the Irvine game, that made the feels come right back. I feel like we're right back in it. The guys had a completely different look at walkthrough the day before going through scout. We don't really have a mantra or a slogan or anything like that, but I mean, our leaders, we've joked as a staff, which, is a recipe for a great team. Again, is like our leaders, our seniors are like mini coaches. They're out there like with their arm around a guy, like, hey, I know you're trying, but you got to do this. This is how we do it, and if a guy makes a turnover, they're like, hey, pick it up. But you got the next play, like just make the play. And it's like, all right, we'll just let them player-led team, at times. And so that's cool to see, is that they are coming together. It's a lot of new faces, but everybody said that last year too. Nobody knew, what Yanni was going to do, what KJ and Mal were going to do in the backcourt together. And so now they're saying the same thing about how's Terrell gonna mesh with Polium. How's Josh Tomajic and Nathan Mensah going to play together? And it's the same question. That's what it is nowadays. And so, culture is what it is. It's a winning culture. The guys, they expect to win. Yeah, they saw UCLA, but it's like, let's lace them up. Like, let's do this. Not like, oh, we're just thankful to play and be on the court with you guys. Like, no, they're ready to go. So this year's team is fighting, and they're excited to play. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. Who knows how long we get to, but we're ready to go as long as they'll let us.
Yeah, gratitude has a whole different meaning right now for college basketball. So
unbelievable.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, JD. Best of luck, man. Stay safe. Keep wearing the mask. Awesome opportunity for you. So happy for you. You've been a friend of mine in this business for a while, and
absolutely.
Just love that you're in such a great spot and doing such great things, man. So for Eli and us on the Mountain West Hoops Insider, thanks so much, man. We look forward to having some other guys on the staff in the future, but we wanted to make sure to get one of the unsung heroes on the staff. Man.
I don't need any light. You don't even need to go there. Get somebody more important on staff on.
Nah, not at all, man. We'll just share the love.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you, man. Good to see you, Eli.
JD Pollock from San Diego State representing today. Good to have him on this morning. Any final thoughts you had kind of on anything he said or on San Diego State before we move forward and talk about Colorado State?
Yeah, it's just cool to dive into their culture a little bit, and JD shed some really positive light on some of the new guys that they have there, especially the conversation on Gomez. I think was really interesting to see how his fit has been with the program, but just a program that's doing a lot of great things. And he mentioned it. I'm glad that you asked it, just about being really grateful for this opportunity, but also acknowledging like, hey, we've got big games coming up and we've got a chance to do some really special things. So it's cool to dive behind the curtain a little bit and see what's going on within that program. So that was really good to see, and San Diego State's got a lot of good things coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of a lot of good things coming, we have another special guest coming on in about 5 minutes from Colorado State. Another one of my very close friends. I've been blessed to really get to know him over the last few months, and excited to have him on. One of the top assistant coaches in the conference. I'll let the suspense build up for who it is until we bring him on. But talk a little bit about Colorado State. Obviously, they haven't been able to play. We know they're talented. We know they have two really good sophomores coming back. They've added some good pieces. So talk a little bit about them more before we kind of bring our guest on.
Yeah, Colorado State's definitely one of those teams that I've had my eye on all off season. I think that the Rams are going to be one of those teams that probably flies under the radar a little bit, especially now with Nico Carvacho moving on. I think a lot of people will point at that, but it's still a really intriguing roster, and Nico Medved's and his staff have done a really good job building up some of these programs over time. They have really good guard play. The perimeter especially, I think, is going to be really interesting to see how that works. It's probably going to be, if not the best, it's going to be one of the best perimeter shooting teams in the conference. I really expect that to be the case. Great distributors in the backcourt. Just a really fun team overall that I think has a number of guys who could break out. David Roddy impressed me a lot last season as a freshman, and just kind of his nature and his physical stature, I think, will bring a really good element to Colorado State. And it's a team that's going to be interesting, and I'm really excited to see them in action once that gets going.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the talented guys, and Coach has done such a good job there. He's going into year 3, if I'm not mistaken. Just recently got a contract extension, so that's always a big deal when you can have that happen and kind of just have that reassurance from your administration of the job that you're doing. Let's talk just a little bit more about their schedule coming up. If after we talk to our guests, of course, and we'll find out kind of where their things are at, but talk a little bit about their schedule as we look ahead for the rest of this semester before our guest comes on.
Yeah, I think there was a report out recently from John Rothstein of CBS Sports about where this team is at with their status, and we'll learn more here in a little bit. But the team's currently on that pause, as many teams are in the conference and also around the nation. But the report was that they expect to get going next week. Again, we'll see what the status is with that. But the schedule as it currently stands, and of course we'll get corrections on this if it's outdated or inaccurate, but have that game at Colorado scheduled for next Tuesday. That's going to be the in-state rivalry, always a really good matchup between those two programs. And then also Northern Colorado, another in-state rival, a program that's been really good in recent years. That one will be the home opener next Saturday. But again, I mean, it's all subject to change and tip times and TV times and everything like that. You never really know what the case is going to be, but I believe the expectation is to get going next week, and we'll see if that's for sure the case. But again, it's so fluid with everyone's schedules at this point.
Yeah, fluid and adapting and adjusting is what it's all about, and keeping that gratitude. We'll do a quick timeout and commercial break, and then we'll come right back with our special guest.
Thank you for joining us for the All Access Coaches Corner podcast. We are so excited to continue serving coaches, sharing their stories, and spotlighting their programs. Stay connected as we bring you more special guests and more real conversations covering all aspects of the game. You can find our show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at allaccess_CC. Subscribe to the All Access Network YouTube channel and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
I want to take time to acknowledge one of our partners, Rising Coaches. Every coach wants to rise in their career in one way or another. We're all looking for professional development, access to tools, and relationships that can help us grow and help us advance in our career. Rising Coaches provides just that. You can visit Rising Coaches at www.risingcoaches.com. Their memberships are just $10 a month and provides a genuine community to help you grow and advance in your career. Welcome back. We got my main man, JR. What's going on, Coach? How you doing out there in Colorado, man?
Man, what's up, my man? Good to see you, B. Eli, good to see you, my man.
Good to see you, too.
Yeah, good to have you on, man. Good to have you on. I can talk all day when it comes to this dude, man. This is my guy, so I'm gonna step out the way and let Eli lead the way in our conversation today with our special guest.
Yeah, I think right off the gate, obviously the elephant in the room going on with COVID-19, just if you can give us a bit of a background of where the program's at and what you expect to have for the upcoming schedule for you guys.
Yeah, unfortunately, we got hit with a little bit of the COVID pause there last week. Really unfortunate timing. We were about 3 days away from getting on a charter to go to Oregon State and Cal, and a couple Tier 1 people in our program positive, and it was just an unfortunate circumstance. But right now, looking to get starting to get guys back yesterday, today, more tomorrow, and just as the protocols of getting back into action, return to play, and looks like we'll be practicing by the end of the week, early next week, and then we look to start the season potentially next Saturday against Northern Colorado.
And I guess just overall, what has this all been like in terms of scheduling? Obviously, you guys have dealt with trying to get the multi-team event and then also the event, as you mentioned, with Oregon State. Just what has that been like for your staff trying to get games? And is there some sort of mentality of trying to schedule certain teams of certain calibers, or is it just trying to get as many games as possible? What's that been like?
Yeah, right now we're trying to originally, we're trying to get a tougher schedule. Obviously, starting off with Oregon State and Cal, 2 Pac-12 teams, and then we're going to play CU what would have been Tuesday upcoming. And then we had to schedule a series with San Diego State. So obviously those first 5 games would have been able to see, you know, what we had and kind of expose us to some of our weaknesses. But at this point, we really just want to get our guys some games. They're itching to play. They've been here since July, and we're really just trying to find games. So we're still looking to add 1, maybe possibly 2 more even before Christmas. We go out to St. Mary's on December 19th to play them and start a series with them, which we're very excited for. Obviously, a great program, a great culture out there. So we want to test our guys. We want to get some tests in before the Mountain West schedule comes at us.
Yeah, definitely. And then just with the team overall, what's been maybe a couple points or some things that you've noticed with the team in the offseason, maybe a couple things that you're excited about within the roster?
Yeah, most competitive team that I've been a part of in my coach days, and since obviously we've been here for 3 years, guys go after it, get after it every day, and it's just a battle on the court where guys never want to stop practicing, they never want to end drills. It's always like, hey, coach, can we get one more? Can we get another one? Let's just get a rematch. And we love that battle and that competitive spirit that these guys have. Obviously, replacing Nico Carvacho on the defensive end and the rebounding end will be what everyone is coming into the season anticipating, and that's what we'll do collectively. But just a group of guys that are hungry. Obviously, the sophomores, Isaiah Stevens and David Roddy, get a lot of attention, and likely so. But, you know, a great supporting cast behind them and some new guys that will come in with some fresh faces and just ready to get after it.
And just overall, it's a team that returns most of the guys. Obviously, you mentioned Nico, but returns most of the guys from last season. You guys had quite a bit of success, but overall, still a young roster. I don't believe any 4-year seniors on the team. What does that look like for you? Do you still feel that it's a team that is a bit young, or do you think that experience and continuity kind of helps you guys out a bit?
We're definitely young. You know, it's a team with no seniors, like you said, Eli, and it's the guys that are young in age but also have a lot of experience. You know, Kendall Moore and Adam Thiswood have started almost every game since their freshman and sophomore years, and obviously Isaiah and David Roddy got a lot of experience last year. But then you add new guys to the mix like Deshaun James Morris, both bigs that can shoot it, but haven't had a lot of experience and got to go out there and battle all these big 5-man from the Mountain West. That will be a challenge, but you know, they're active and ready, and you know, we have a lot of game experience, but still the youth that comes with that. And you know, in 2 or 3 years when we guys are all seniors and juniors, then we really think we have a chance.
And is there something in particular that you're hoping to see out of Isaiah this season? Obviously, he was phenomenal last year, freshman of the year, and I think he took quite a few people by surprise. What do you expect to see out of his development and what he'll bring to your program?
I mean, he's just a leader in and out, on the court, off the court, and he's somebody that just pushes other people to be better. And I think you'll see that this year as we talked about him just taking control of the team. You know, we gave him the keys last year, and now he's driving the car, and we're trying to get him to drag other people in the car with him. You know, he's a kid that just always wants the best. He's going to be the first one in the gym, the last one to leave, and he's just a special kid that you know, it's once in a lifetime to coach somebody like that, and he has the potential and the skill level to be one of the best players in the Mountain West.
And you think with kind of the skill set you mentioned there and his mentality, is that kind of something that you expect out of him, because it is a young roster that you need him to step into that leadership role and maybe be a bit more vocal than some other sophomores in the conference?
Absolutely. You know, in the middle of last year, basically we told him like, hey, you got to step it up, you know, and he was only a freshman, but we want him to be a guy that opposing coaches are like, man, that kid's still in the league. Like, he's still here, like, you know, and he's got to take that responsibility, and he wants it and he embraces it, you know, and he's just like, hey, if something goes wrong, like, we're yelling at Isaiah, like whether it was Roddy's fault or Adam's fault or Kendall, like, we're yelling at Isaiah, and then he'll get everybody collectively together, and he orchestrates the team, and that's what we want in our point guard leader. Yeah,
definitely. And then one other thing that I'm curious about here before I turn it back into Brian, this team has shooters all over the floor. I think it's something that a lot of people note. How do you, I guess, anticipate bringing that to fruition? And maybe what does this team do in terms of maybe some personnel or some strategy that you have against some of the really good defenses that are in this conference?
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of our specialties is ability to shoot the ball. I think everybody can shoot it, and something that's a little different this year is our 5-man will be able to step out and shoot threes. And Nico was a great player, but he didn't bring that ability to the floor. So we're just gonna play how we've been playing. We'll play fast and get out in transition and space and pace, and that's something that we talk about every day is just spacing and moving the ball. And if you have a player that we've been blessed to have like Isaiah, who can get other people's shots and actually wants to do that, then we hope for the best in that manner. But we're gonna play fast. We're gonna get it out and run. And Coach Medved is the players' coach. Like he lets guys shoot it, and he lets them shoot it early. And some of them we're scratching our head over there, but when they go in, we're all clapping and we look really good. So, but it's a free flowing offense, and guys really enjoy playing, and we'll play that same way.
And with Nico, a guy that I really enjoyed covering, and he just did phenomenal things for the Rams program. Just in your insight, is there something in particular that maybe he's done that's rubbed off on some of the guys that you currently have on the roster, maybe in terms of defensive mentality or getting after the boards or things like that?
Absolutely. I mean, Nico was a great kid and a great young man, and we love him. We all sat up and watched his game. He played in the FIBA Americas this past weekend, and that just shows you who he is, that we're still following him and still want him to do the best. And he was just somebody that brought it. He was about winning, and obviously the rebounds and the defensive showed up a lot. And I think he really did a great job leading Deshaun and James last year, just teaching them the ropes and how it should be and how you should practice. He never missed a practice. He's just somebody that was always there every day and just brought it and was a competitive spirit. And I think that the guys saw that, and now they want to be that and emulate that, and that's what he left here for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really intriguing roster. I think top to bottom, you guys have a ton of different types of breakout stars and guys who can step up. I guess the other question here, everyone's dealing with COVID in some sort of sense. Just from your perspective, what are some of the key points that you've been maybe echoing to your team, and what do you expect for things to look like when you roll out the basketball and there's no one there in Fort Collins?
Yeah, it's a different year, but we just been telling our guys to keep focused, that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, and there's going to be some difficult times. There's going to be some more adversity to come, that even from this one right here. And we've just been telling them that they are who they are, and we always say team together, and it's always just about our team mentality, and that's what Coach Medved instills in them. And I think we're just ready to come out and compete, and we want to keep them hungry, but also have fun and go out and enjoy this process and enjoy being a Division I college athlete, because it's a blessing, and so many people will want to be in this situation that they're in. So we just try to constantly remind them of that, and keep reiterating the fact that they're here for a reason, and we still can do big things with this season.
Absolutely, yeah. And then I guess kind of here one more question on my end. Just within your role with the staff, I know a lot of people are familiar with the faces on your staff, Nico Medved and Ali Frokmanesh, of course. A lot of really good guys who've been doing this for quite a while. Just if you can give a brief analysis of what your role is like within that staff, and just kind of what your duties are from a week-to-week basis.
I'll say this, he won't say it, but obviously they just did a recent poll with Stadium and Jeff Goodman, who I think you may have mentioned earlier, Eli, and JR was voted by his peers as one of the top assistant coaches in the country. Yep. I'm biased, so I can say that about my friend, but he won't say it, but I can say it. So obviously his impact is respected not only within his staff, but amongst his peers, which I wanted to make sure I acknowledge myself, because he won't say it, because he's a humble guy.
No, I mean, it's a great staff, and I think, we all kind of come together collectively to try to orchestrate everything in a systematic manner, where Coach Thorson, who was a high school coach in Minnesota, a legendary high school coach, won 9 state championships, he's the older head on the staff, and Ali and I just kind of go to him and, hey, Thor, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And we can pick his brain about a lot of different things, and he's recruited every area in the United States, from his time in Minnesota to South Dakota to being in high school. So, and then Ali obviously was a great player, but also comes in as a great skill guy and just has a reputation for just working hard, but also developing guys. And, so I try to pick and choose from each one of those guys. And then Coach Medved just kind of, he manages us all, but he also lets us do our own thing. And I think that's what's great and what's positive in this. And, I just try to get in where I can, man. And, I work with the guards, but I'll dip into the bigs, and then, just try to create sound relationships with each one of these guys. And, I think one of our biggest things that we do is our culture and just how we build our relationships off the court, where these guys know that we love and invest in them. And all of us do that collectively, Eli.
And then I guess one other thing here, just as you mentioned with the culture, what does that look like? And I guess what does that bond look like, especially during these times when I think you guys, and Brian and I mentioned this on this show, everyone's kind of got to step up in their role and take on kind of a bigger role than they're used to. Just how does that culture work with these times, and what do you see out of your team in that regard?
Yeah, it's tough times right now especially for these young men. It was unfortunate timing of everything. We're kind of like, man, we wish this would have happened 4 weeks ago, and then we'd be able to play. But I think that's the important thing of establishing it from the ground up. And we've had this culture not just during this COVID period, but it's been going on since we've been here. And that was one of the first things Coach Medved talked to us about when we first got here. It's like, hey, we're going to change this culture, and we want these guys to know that it is about basketball, but it's also about relationships and building intimate bonds with these young men, so that when basketball doesn't go the right way, or when school isn't going well, or when something in their family isn't going well, we're there for them. And, I think that's been important. So, we feel like we have a great relationship. We've been, obviously, Zoom calls right now is the thing to go with some guys stuck in quarantine, but it's just been great and positive, and I think guys are ready to go and still hungry to get back out there on the floor. So I think we'll be able to put a good product on the floor, even though we may be a little out of shape.
Yeah, we know that after you guys go back to playing, that Coach won't be complaining quite like Coach Boettger did after playing Bryant. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
well, it does make it tricky for everybody, man. Excited for you guys to get on the floor. I know your guys are anxious. Excited for you, man. Excited for the squad. Obviously, you guys are, part of the family for me. So just rooting for all the guys in the Mountain West, but in particular the guys I know closely like yourself, man. So
appreciate that,
man. Keep wearing the mask. Keep those guys going, and good luck to start, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all.
All right, Jay.
Take care.
Yeah, Colorado State assistant J.R. Blount, who just joined us and was an awesome, just a great time to be able to have, while they're not playing games and kind of going through it, to be able to at least get a little insight to what's going on in their program. Let's talk a little bit about Fresno State. Our next guest coming on is representing from there. Let's talk a little bit about Fresno State before he comes on, and kind of some of the things you've noticed early on from them.
Yeah, Fresno State's going to be an interesting team this year. They've got a lot of new pieces that I'm excited about. It's a roster that did have a lot of turnover in the spring, and we'll get more insight into what these new guys look like. But it's a really good staff there. It's been there for a while. Fresno State's had some really good success, as you know, obviously. But it's a lot of new pieces, and I know that they're excited to get out on the floor and do some really special things. Obviously, their opener went really well, getting that win against William Jessup. Trying to see some new guys and see those new faces on the roster. But I'm intrigued to see what the Bulldogs look like, because they've got a really great forward who we've mentioned on this program quite a bit, who could be in that next line of quality forwards on Fresno State, maybe like a Nate Grimes or a Bryson Williams, and that being Orlando Robinson. And I think that he could be easily a double-double machine, a guy who kind of takes on one of those leadership roles, even though he is fairly new to the roster. So I think it's a team that should get better as the season goes along, just because they are new and they are young. but Fresno State could be one of those teams that we could see climb up that Mountain West ladder as the season progresses.
Yeah, for sure. And we got a long time Mountain West assistant coach. He's a veteran. I think he's probably getting some kind of retirement or pension from the Mountain West itself. But we got an awesome guest coming on next. We will do a really quick commercial break, and then we'll bring him in.
Thank you for joining us for the All Access Coaches Corner podcast. We are so excited to continue serving coaches, sharing their stories, and spotlighting their programs. Stay connected as we bring you more special guests and more real conversations covering all aspects of the game. You can find our show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at allaccess_CC. Subscribe to the All Access Network YouTube channel and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
Coach Felton, what's going on, my man? We got
what's happening
from Fresno State recently, man. Associate head coach now. So what's going on, Coach? How you doing?
Oh man, glad to be here. Glad to be here. Appreciate you guys having me on. You know, this is it's a crazy time of year. You know, normally we're in a normal year, we're getting ready for you know, a long stretch of games here for the preseason, getting ready to go into finals, and you know, we would know a little bit more about our team because we would have, you know, 4 or 5, maybe sometimes 6 games under our belt. But we got one in, and we get to take a little break.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on the offseason being promoted to associate head coach. We'll talk about the team next, but we want to talk a little bit about you and your role there at Fresno State. Obviously, you had some opportunities that you were pursued by some other schools. Was because of your ability to help impact winning. You were a longtime assistant as well at Utah State. We'll talk a little bit about the Mountain West in general, your role there with Fresno State. Coach Huddy is a Mountain West favorite as well. You guys are doing a great job there. Just talk a little bit about that before we talk about your team.
Yeah, you know, the biggest thing, you know, I love the Mountain West. I think it's one of the best leagues in the country from top to bottom as it relates to college basketball. You got some great places to play. You got some places with a lot of story, tradition. And so, you know, this is probably one of the better leagues to be in if you're not in the Power 5. And I think it's, you know, the league is better at some of the places than some of the Power 5, just based on support and chance to win your league and stuff like that. So, you know, the talent level is really good in this league. You know, we've had quite a few guys go on to play in the NBA and play at a high level in the NBA. And also, you know, the coaching in this league is really good. And so you're going to get a test night in and night out, whether as a player or as a coach. And so that's fun. Like I said, some of the places to play, you know, the Spectrum in Logan, the show down in San Diego, you know, the Pit. There's just some great places where you can go and have a great, tremendous, when we get normal, have a tremendous, you know, atmosphere to play in. You know, at UNLV, our place is coming and becoming one of those places where we get a little louder night in and night out. So it's really a fun situation there. For me personally, you know, I was fortunate enough to attain a role here as it relates to the associate head coach title, and you know, very fortunate to do that, and blessed that you know, coach and our administration think that of me, that they were willing to give me that title. They don't just hand those out. So, you know, they must think I did something right here in the last couple of years. And so we're fortunate to be in that situation as well. But it's just a testament to the kids. I think it's all about the players. They make us look good as coaches. And so we got good kids and good players, and they're out performing and trying to do things the right way, both on and off the court. That means you have their best interests at heart, and you're trying to, you know, promote them as best you can. And so we're excited about that and what we've been able to do throughout our career, whether it be at Utah State or here at Fresno.
Yeah. So just quick, you talked about players. You talked about they don't give out those titles as well. You mentioned Utah State. Let's talk real quick about a former player you had that got drafted, Sam Merrill, who had an unbelievable career in the Mountain West. You were able to coach him, I believe, his first 2 seasons at Utah State, or a part of the recruitment process to bringing him there. And he was really kind of we coached against him when I was at Fresno, and you were at Utah State, and we were on the other side of the lines. And kind of a chubby, not really basketball built kind of kid that could get a lot done as far as shooting the basketball, but became just an elite scorer, efficient as they come. And now he's signed an NBA contract and he's a millionaire. So talk just a little bit. I know we're going to talk Fresno State, but talk just a little bit about your time coaching Sam Merrill, who just got drafted.
Yeah, how you talk about being old. Sam Merrill was a sophomore, freshman. 7 years ago. We recruited him out of high school, and the first thing you noticed about him, even as a high school player, watching him throughout the state, watching him in AAU, the first word that came to mind, winner. He won a state championship as a quarterback and a cornerback at a 4A football school. And then if it wasn't for Jalen Moore hitting a half-court shot, he would have won a high school state championship as well. And, then he went on his 2-year mission and came back as a freshman and was a little out of shape. But even as a freshman, his stats were, he was a 40, 50, 90 guy as a freshman. And that's almost unheard of. And just, his ability to make guys better, his work ethic, his competitiveness, those were elite from day one.
Right.
He wanted to win every drill. We do a lot of shooting with our guards, and we give them high goals to try to reach. And he wanted to reach and beat every goal. He wanted to be number one.
Yeah.
And so having him and at the time we had Kobe McEwen as well. Those were two of the most competitive dudes I'd ever been around, and they go at it every day, whether they were on the same team or not on the same team, and it was fun to watch. It was fun to be a part of and watch those guys develop. And so, I'm very happy for Sam and his family. You talk about first class family. You talk about Aggies through and through. His sister, I think she got the most talent out of the family. She was a high level soccer player for our women's soccer team up at Utah State. And so, but just first class all the way. I'm very happy for them and what they've been able to, and him personally, what he's been able to do there and what he's been able to do with his career. But winner all the way. You wouldn't expect any more if you knew Sam Merrill from day one. He wants to be good. And I remember he was in a drill having to guard a quick guy as a freshman. His name Shane Rector. You probably remember Shane from New York. He was quick now. And we were in, doing some one-on-one closeout stuff. And Shane was, he was going by him quite a bit. And, you're trying to keep your freshman going. And, hey, man, don't worry about it. He's quick. He's supposed to beat you. And
right.
You could just see him. No, screw that. He ain't supposed to beat me. Coach, I'm going to tell you, he's not going to beat me next time. And sure enough, he got better. Learned how to play with angles and understand that. And he'll do well. If he gets a chance to get on that floor, even at that level, he will find a way to make it work.
Yeah, for sure. A couple questions on that too before we move to Fresno State. You mentioned the 50, 40, 90. Some people may not know what that means, so talk about that. And then when you signed him, you probably didn't think it was an NBA guy. And then lastly, what was it like coaching against him the last couple of years in the league as you made the transition? And I know the first year you guys had some incredible battles with Deshaun Taylor, Braxton Huggins. When I was at Fresno with Coach Terry, we had some battles. We actually lost the game at Utah State.
Right.
Gave away in overtime. We won't go there. And Taylor, who's a great Mountain West player. And then you guys came to Fresno and won on a buzzer beater. So we won't talk about those games anymore.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. What was it like for you coaching against him? And then talk about that 50, 40, 90 and kind of just what that means.
Yeah, the 50, 40, 90, 50% from overall offensive field goal percentage, 40% from three-point field goal percentage offensively, and then 90% from the free throw line. And when guys you talk about being efficient, when you got kids that can shoot those numbers and be a guy that's in a scouting report, if not number one, number two on the other team's scouting report, and still able to achieve those numbers, that's special. And to have a guy do that even as a freshman, a first-year player in this league in the Mountain West, where, like I said, where the coaching and the playing is at a high level. And this is a league, by far and large, is more so older. A lot of transfers, a lot of fifth-year guys, a lot of older upperclassmen. They comprise majority of the rosters in our league. But to have a freshman that's able to do that was phenomenal. And we've always have a guy like that if we can, and we be 180. Those numbers add up to 180. If you can get, how close can you get to 180? If you determine yourself to be a shooter, you can't just talk about it. You got to be measurable, and those things are what you talk about when you talk about being a high level sniper, high level shooter.
Right.
And then obviously, we had some great battles, like you said, with you guys when I was at Utah State, both in the Spectrum and here at Save Mart Center. But last year, playing against that first year, immediately following leaving Utah State and getting on at Fresno, we had a good team. And Sam was they were kind of starting to come along as a team and gel, and it was one of the first or second, I can't remember, maybe first, second, third game of the league schedule. We're on the road at Utah State, and it's my first time back up there after having been there for 10 years. We joked about making sure I went to the right locker room and went down the right tunnel. Didn't revert back to those old ways, but it was a phenomenal game. I think we were down at one point by 15, and that crowd was going, and you're just kind of sitting there going, "Uh-oh, you've seen this before," but you've been on the other end of it. But our kids, and you give them credit, Deshaun, Braxton, those guys, Sam, those leaders, they didn't flinch, and we kept going possession by possession, and it was a great college basketball game, and to have Braxton hit that shot at the end of the game was great, and to be able to get that win in the Spectrum that year was special for us as well. And then came back, and it's a 1-point game here, kind of along the same lines, and we're kind of going back and forth, and then they jump up and make a shot at the end, and they end up beating us here by one, and just back and forth, and like you said, trying to prepare for a guy like Sam, who's not only efficient shooting the basketball, but he doesn't turn it over, and he's a high level pick and roll player. He makes the right decision, he gets the ball where it needs to go, and I thought he did a really good job of getting his body right and being able to play for longer periods of time, and doing things that way, and just being efficient, getting to the foul line. Got to the foul line a lot his junior and senior year, and was able to get to the basket and finish as well, and so just became a more complete player. And preparing for him, it was kind of, what do you do? How do you pick your poison? Because if you're up on his ball screens, then he's able to, because of his size and his vision and skill, he can make the right reads and get the ball where it needs to go. And if you're back, he was one of the best at keeping his defender on his hip, getting downhill, and then making late decisions, whether it be pull-up jumpers or going at the big or dumping it to Big Cater down there. And so he was a nightmare. He was a nightmare to prepare for, but the competitor in all of us, you try to find a way to give your team a chance. And we had some good battles. I think we should have beat them at their place last year. That was a really close game, and so it was. But yeah, so it was fun. He and I would always talk before and after the game, and it was always love, and we jab each other a little bit because that was kind of the nature of our relationship. He was a guy that he would subtly try to give it to you. He was like that. You had to respect it. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So as a long-time vet in the league, still working on your team coming, I think. Out west, you get a see this, and they'll be like, "Yeah, we owe that guy." But, going back, even when you were in the WAC or Utah State, we had a discussion with a guy named Payne. Player of the year. When I coached in junior college, and you did a great job recruiting. Talked about Camaro recruiting him. Talk a little bit about the new guys at Fresno State that you've recruited and that you guys have brought in as a staff. Obviously, I'm biased towards one of them, who I happen to know and have coached as well. But talk a little bit about the new group and the new crowd.
Yeah, we're really excited about this group. You heard me say earlier, the majority of the teams in our league are older, either by transfer or, guys who just kind of come up through the program. But, we were fortunate enough, we were able to go get a couple of transfers as well. Isaiah Hill, who's from Bakersfield, came back to us from Tulsa. Who has a tremendous feel as a lead guard. Is really shifty with the ball. Quick, can get to places on the floor, and we're excited, to have him. It's probably the first point guard we've had in the program, since we've been here. We had Deshaun Taylor is one of the best defenders and most competitive dudes I've ever been around. But he wasn't really a true point guard, but he learned how to play the position and played at a high level. And then obviously, the kid we had, Jared Hyder, we had last year, is more of a combo guy. We had Noah Blackwell as well, who's probably closer to what Isaiah is. But Isaiah's a lead guard, can talk, can pull a group together. Is really good in the open court and knows how to play and get the ball going to the right people in the half court. So we're excited to have him as well. And then obviously the guy you're talking about, Deion Stroud, who's from Fresno and was there at UTEP and starting to really come into his own as a player. High motor, really gets after it at both ends of the floor. Has the potential, I think, to be a all Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year type player, even out from the perimeter, because he's long and athletic and he's pretty tough. We're excited to have those two guys, and they were able to get waivers and eligible right away. So, we're excited to get them on the floor. The team we were able to kind of recruit last year, Orlando Robinson, it was a guy that we were very fortunate to get in the recruiting, and had a good freshman year. A double-digit score, averaged 12 and 7 rebounds a game, and as a freshman, like I said, in this league, that's tough. He was beat out by I think Isaiah from Colorado State for freshman of the year, but had a good year for us. Had 5 20-point games for us last year, second most here behind another really good freshman that played here, Paul George, that was good and still is good. And so and those guys were guys that we've been able to bring into the mix. Anthony Hollins, a returner, is a 40% three-point shooter, just a guy that's always in the right place. Just does all the little things to help you win games, kind of the ultimate glue guy. We were able to kind of, the freshman kid that we got, Braxton Mia, who I think has a chance to be a really, really good player. Even early on, and I think you're going to see him. Every time I watch Braxton play, he's been better than he was the time before. That was when I watched him in high school, when I watched him in AAU as a junior, then watched him his senior season. Every time he was on the floor, he's gotten better. And it's been noticeably better. And even here, from the time we got going in October, every day he's got a little better till up until the other day when we had to shut down. But he's gotten better, and I think he's got a chance to be a force in this league. He's athletic. He can run, and he's got a toughness and a nastiness to him that you want your bigs to have. And he's a great young man, but he wants to learn. He wants to get better, and so he's got a real chance to be really good. Devin Gage, the young man, the fifth-year transfer we got from DePaul, is another long, athletic. He's only 6'2", but he's got arms as long as mine, and has a chance to really come in and be a calming force for these young guys. He's a fifth-year senior. He's gone through every battle there is to go through in the Big East, which is a tough man's league, and he's been that for us, and he continues to do that for us as well. So. We got Christian Gray back, who sat out last year, who was part of that 23-24 win team we had 2 years ago and knows what winning looks like. And we're going to count on him for some leadership and some stability within these young guys as we kind of get going. So, we've got a good group, and we're excited about our group. And, we've got some good other freshmen in Destin Whitaker and Leo Colomario that are both long and skilled and can make, be positionless basketball players, can play a lot of different positions for us, along with, Junior Ballard, who transferred over from Cal Poly, that'll give us some shooting, and another home, from Modesto. So, we tried to bring the Valley back together, as I know you're familiar with Brian, that, this is a very homegrown place here in Fresno, and they support the young men because they are Bulldogs, and especially the ones that were here as prep stars.
Yeah, with the roster makeup here with you guys, I've noticed kind of the trend of really athletic big men. You have Asani, Braxton, Orlando, like all these guys have huge wingspans. They can really play at different levels. And then also the transfer guards and the transfer wings. Is that by design, or is it kind of just you making do with what you have there in terms of transfers and also on the recruiting trails? Just like, what's your overall analysis of that?
I think most of it is by design. The good thing about, for us is, we're able to kind of go get the guys we think we like and can help us be successful and fit into our style and our culture and kind of how we want to play. Obviously, if you know anything about Justin Hudson, he's a defense first guy. And so, guys that are long, athletic, can defend and have that toughness to them. If you don't play hard, you don't get to play here. If you don't buy into the defensive end, it's gonna be tough for you to get comfortable and have a lot of minutes on the floor. And Braxton Huggins, as I'm sure Brian knows, is a guy that when we got him from New Mexico State, his MO was that he didn't play defense. Well, he bought in really quickly and was one of our best defenders, and was the reason why we were able to be so good that first year, is because he bought in defensively and played his butt off at that end of the floor, and then we allowed him to be him at the offensive end, and you got to see what he was capable of. And so, we recruit to that a little bit, and try to have some length, but also being able to have some skill at the offensive end, and be able to put 5 or 6 guys that may be about the same size, and who knows if they're 1, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, whatever, that just can play basketball. And so that's another thing that we're trying to do. We want to be able to play at a higher pace and get up and down the floor and be fun, exciting to watch. And so give our fans something that they want to come back to night in and night out. And so and that's what all these guys tend to do. We're not very I shouldn't say we're not very short on stature. Every guy's got some length to him, and so that's good playing this game, and that's kind of how we want to be.
Yeah, and with those transfers, the Fresno State's obviously had so much success in that category. You mentioned Deshaun, Braxton, obviously guys on this roster as well. With that being such a big part of the Mountain West, so many of the great players in this conference have been transfers. Within your staff and within your program, do you think it's more so finding transfers who maybe fit your scheme and your philosophy, or is it more so taking what their skill sets are and then trying to apply it to what you guys do?
A good question. I think it's a combination of both. I think you got to have guys who fit you. Guys who, because sometimes it doesn't work if you just take a guy just because he's a really good player. If he doesn't fit how you as a staff, as a coach, your philosophy, your style of play, then it's probably not going to work. So you have to fit, find guys that fit you, as well as guys that have shown that they have the ability to be productive, right away. That's why you take older guys. They've gone through the battles. They've been coached at, a lot of guys at the Division I level, at the 4-year level, even at the JUCO level. They've been coached and they played games, and they've gone through those wars, those seasons. They've been calloused and hardened up, so to speak. And so, but I think it's a combination of both of those. I think you got to have guys that not only fit you and what you're trying to get done, but also, guys that have some talent and bring something to the table to help you, build your program and build your team so that you have the best chance to be successful. That's the way the recruiting is going, and if you don't understand that, then you're probably gonna get left behind, so to speak. And we're fortunate enough at Fresno State that we have a lot of things to offer because of the league we're in, because of where we're at, and the things we have to offer here. That we're able to get some pretty good transfers.
And just going back to first game of the season, we've only got 40 minutes on you, and also about 40 minutes or 80 minutes on a lot of other teams.
That's all we've had. Just so you know, that's all we've had as well. That's all we've got.
So just if you have any notable takeaways from that first game, I know you guys had 5 guys off the bench, I believe. Is that more so just kind of how the game unfolded, or do you expect to have a lot of depth on this roster that you use throughout the season? I'm just curious how your takeaways from that first matchup.
The biggest thing was we were able to, go against somebody that wasn't a Fresno State Bulldog, being able to, hit bodies that weren't ours and play against somebody else. One of the big things from this year, not having exhibitions and not being able to go scrimmage other schools, you get, even though it's new and we started later, kids get pretty, I shouldn't say bored, complacent with playing against themselves day in and day out for that long a period of time. So that was good. I think our energy was really good going into the game, being able to play against somebody else. I thought we were able to establish our tempo offensively and defensively in that game. And I think you kind of saw that. We were able to push the ball in transition on makes and on misses. We were able to get quite a few possessions. We were able to drive the ball, to get the ball to the paint, which is something that we want to do. We talk about trying to get at least 40 paint touches every game, get the ball to the paint. We were able to throw the ball inside. We shot a lot of free throws. So, I think establishing our tempo of how we want to play was something that we were able to see, and, you come away with from a positive note. I think our rebounding was pretty good. I would expect us to be a good rebounding team. Being that we have guys that chase the ball down, and then, like you said, depth. If you don't have depth in this season because of COVID, I think you're gonna struggle because right now we're in the middle of a shutdown, so we're gonna go 14, 15 days without really being able to do anything, and then all of a sudden we're probably gonna come back and go maybe 2 or 3, and then you got to play a game. You're going to have some depth. And I think we saw that we got a few guys that we can play. We have, I think, 9, 10 guys that we could put out there and be able to get stuff done. And like you heard Brian say, are you affecting winning? And that's the biggest key. If you're not affecting winning, then you probably have a hard time getting on the floor. And so, and each kid on our team has a chance to do that in his own special way. And getting them to understand that's going to be our charge, and as we continue to get better. But we like our group. We think we got a group that if we can keep together for the next couple of years, we got a chance to be really good. And even by the time we get going and get to the league this year, if we can get some games under our belt and get some game reps and be able to get some stuff on film where we can show them the things they need to do to improve, to be better, we have a chance to be a good team.
We spoke with J.D. Pollock from San Diego State earlier in the show, and just kind of talking to him about playing in the empty Viejas Arena. Obviously, that's an arena that you're familiar with, just being so raucous and tough to play. How have your guys adjusted to playing, I guess, in an empty arena when you have 15,000 seats being empty? Just how has your roster adjusted to that, and how's everyone handling this?
Man, kids are resilient. Not having played since March, they just want to be able to play. If you told them they had to play outside, I think our guys would just, okay, let's go. Let's just go play. I think our kids have adjusted just fine. I think they, like I said, they brought energy, even in that first game, even though it's a non-Division I opponent, and they were fine. And then we went over the Pacific, and our guys were ready to go. And we weren't able to play the game, but they were ready to go. And so I think kids are they're excited, and they're happy just to have the opportunity just to be able to play. Because when you don't have that, when it's taken away from you abruptly like it was, and you're not sure if you're going to get it back right away, you're thankful, you're grateful for the opportunity just to get back to this point. And so you give those guys, you give those kids credit, and they were excited just to be out there, and it felt like a game. And there was some jitters there, and that's good. That means they're excited. That means they care. They're vested, and so that was very good for us to see. And I think our guys they'll be excited to play when we get back, and we're looking forward to getting them back and get going.
And just with scheduling, that's obviously going to be the talk of the town throughout the season, just of how big of a mess it's been. Yeah. What has been your, I guess, analysis of that, and how has your staff adjusted to not knowing when you might play or not knowing who is down the road and things like scouting and things like that?
Yeah, you kind of, like you said, it's been a goat show, to say the least, trying to get it done. And I applaud everybody who's in charge of scheduling. Thank goodness I don't have to deal with that much anymore. But it's just, you just show up and you work on you. You try to get better at what you do, because you don't know who you're going to play from one day to the next, from 1 week to the next. These days it might be from one hour to the next. And so you just try to get better at what you do. And so if you get a chance to play a game, you might have a day or a half day to try to prepare for what they're doing and kind of get a feel. But it's more old school. It's more just, get your team the best you can get them, and then you kind of go. So that's kind of where we're at with, and scheduling is, if you're available to play and the dates work out and you're close by and you got your negative test, and then let's go. That's kind of what we're doing. We were supposed to play Riverside Monday, and I think they're now going to go to Vegas and play Washington tonight. And that's how quickly you got to try to turn around. And we're trying to figure out what our return date is, and then who we can find, who has some openings, and we can play when we come back. And so, thank goodness for cell phones and smartphones, and you can do everything from your phone, sending emails, send a text and figure out, hey man, you got a date open? Okay, let's meet. Where you want to play at? We might be playing in Barstow. You just never know. We might go halfway from wherever to try to find a game. You're on mute.
So excited, man. I want to make sure I gave you the floor. I want to make sure I put mute on my side, man. No, so great to have you on, Coach. Obviously, longtime friend and a guy that I've respected in this business for a long time. So happy for you in a new role at Fresno State. Biased towards the Fresno State Bulldogs. That's a part of my career and a part of who I am. I have some Valley in me for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so just rooting for you guys this year as always, man. Thanks for coming on. We look forward to continuing to stay in touch as we kind of follow you guys all season, and hopefully you guys can get back on the floor soon. That's the big.
No doubt. Appreciate you guys having us, man. It's been fun, and B, how much I care about you and what kind of your career, and followed it and try to help you any way I can, and appreciate what you guys are doing. Your platform's been great, man. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Eli.
Thanks so much. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Be safe. Thanks, Coach.
All right, man. You too.
Hello too, man.
I will.
Okay. Awesome time there with a longtime friend of mine, and
yeah, I think I lost you there, but just a really good conversation with Tarvish, and just with where Fresno State's at, dealing with that hiccup right now, and it's just it's common with a lot of these teams, are being able to practice sparingly, or be going on pause and having a game here, a game there. It requires a lot of adjustment for these staffs, and he hinted at that quite a few times, of just being flexible, trying to pick up games where you can, making sure your team's ready. You have 10, 12, 13 guys who might play bigger roles than you anticipate. So there's a lot going on with that Fresno State program. It's good to see these guys get waivers and being able to play immediately. They did a really good job against William Jessup, showing out on that opening day matchup. So we'll be keeping tabs on them. Obviously, you're familiar with what Fresno State has done there, and just kind of understanding what the Bulldogs are going to bring to the table this season.
Yeah, I look forward to continuing to watch. We'll keep moving through the league as we kind of wrap up the last 30 minutes of the show or so. Let's go move on to Wyoming. They played yesterday, Texas Southern team who's usually picked at the top of their conference in the SWAC. They also played another team early on, I believe Mississippi Valley, and got two quality wins early. Their freshman, another Texas guy. I always got to shout out our Texas guys. Being a Texas guy myself, looked really good, and they've raved about his ability. Probably the preseason favorite in my mind for freshman of the year. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about their squad and what you see out of them so far.
Yeah, Wyoming's a team that's intrigued me for quite some time, and they got that opening day win against Mississippi Valley State. They really performed well in that one. Offense looked great. Marcus Williams, who you mentioned, is my pick for freshman of the year, and he's been great through 2 games, scoring the basketball, distributing it at a really high level. Monday night's matchup didn't go the way they wanted. They held a huge halftime lead against Texas Southern. I believe it was 21 points. And this kind of goes back to what we've discussed on the show. It's going to be tough for some of these teams to carry momentum in some of these empty gyms. And Laramie can be a really challenging place to play. And when there's no one there, I think it kind of levels the playing field a little bit. So Wyoming wasn't able to hold on to that lead. It's a tough loss to Texas Southern. But it's a really good program who's played good basketball to this point.
Yeah, for sure. And looking forward at their schedule before we move on to the next team. What do you see kind of the rest of the week before or next 2 weeks that they have kind of on their schedule? And obviously we know it's subject to change, but what do you see out of them as far as their schedule?
Yeah, they have a quick turnaround against Incarnate Word tomorrow night and Wednesday night. And so that's going to be a matchup to look out for on their end. And then Oregon State on Sunday, that's going to be a road matchup in Corvallis. That's a good opportunity against a team that they've had some success with in the past. I believe this might be the 3rd game of that home and home matchup that they've had with the Beavers. So that'll be a good test for them. And then before you know it, we're rolling into mid-December, have a few more of those non-conference matchups, and then we're away with league play. So some good opportunities for them moving forward to stack some wins and get a bit more momentum before league play starts.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk next about Nevada. They had a big-time game that they won against Nebraska. We've talked about Sherfield a little bit. Let's kind of move forward and talk about Nevada hoops.
Yeah, so they got off to a good start, 3-0 for the Wolfpack, and really came out of the gate strong against North Dakota State. Had a bit of a sputter early, but they really delivered down the stretch and played quality defense. And that's kind of been the theme so far. Nevada's defense has been really strong, preventing teams from scoring on them. And the Nebraska win, I think, was really good against a Big Ten team that has had some success. Grant Sherfield was huge in this one, hitting that go-ahead 3 in the late moments. And he stepped up again against Pacific. And I think that seeing this type of impact early from a transfer who, again, with transfers, they're so prominent in the Mountain West, but sometimes you just don't know with these guys, especially with the offseason that they've had. You don't know how ready they will be or how much of an impact they'll have right out of the gates. But Grant's been tremendous, and you also have some really good contributions from Zane Meeks, who dropped 18 in that win against Pacific. So it's a lot of good stuff all around, and I think Nevada's going to have some opportunities. Next up is San Francisco, and we know what they did against Virginia. That's a team to watch out for. It's a really good test for them, and again, another team that is coming out of the gates fast, and they'll have some opportunities before league play comes around.
Yeah, for sure. And anything that stood out to you, maybe that you didn't expect or that you were surprised with Nevada before we move on to our next team in San Jose State?
Yeah, I think the front court's been pretty good. I mentioned Zane Meeks earlier, but the front court is where I've had my question marks with Sherfield and Cambridge being able to kind of iron out the backcourt losses. I was curious how the front court's going to play out. But Warren Washington's the Oregon State transfer. He's put up some nice minutes, the 7-footer there. Zane Meeks, of course. And then also Trey Coleman, who looks to be really athletic from that wing forward spot. He'll be a guy who I have on my list of players to watch out for. So all in all, it's a team that I think could do some damage here. And they did fly a bit under the radar just because of losing guys like Lindsey Drew and Nisre Zuzwa and also Jalen Harris. So a lot to like about what Nevada's brought to the table so far.
Yeah, and as we move kind of the next team in the Mountain West, talk a little bit about San Jose State and kind of the start to their year.
Yeah, so San Jose State, it's been a challenge for this program. They're currently dealing with the government regulations in that area in Santa Clara County. They haven't yet been able to step on the floor and compete in a game. And as of yesterday, their athletic director, particularly on the football side, has been speaking about relocation to try to get some of these games in. It'll be something to monitor. I think the location is still to be determined, but you just hope that the Spartans can get on the floor as quickly as possible. It's a team that I want to watch and see what they bring to the table. But much like New Mexico, who we spoke about on this program 2 weeks ago, they're dealing with not only some of the situations with COVID, but also having to potentially relocate and just find an area where they can get some of these games in. So it's been a theme on this show, just coaches trying to get some games under their belt and get their players in game action. Hasn't been the case for San Jose State, like a few other teams in this league, but they'll hopefully iron things out and then get to work. They have some games scheduled up against Pacific, which has been a team that they've competed against a lot in years past, and also Santa Clara. So you hope that these games can be played, and it's just kind of a matter of time for things to get ironed out.
Yeah, for sure. And, just a tough time for it seems like California teams almost more than any, but we know New Mexico is kind of dealing with some of the same things. We'll kind of transition and talking about New Mexico next. Probably a similar conversation, but let's talk Lobos real quick before we move on.
Yeah, New Mexico had one of those 2-game series against Boise State scheduled for this weekend, which has been postponed. The makeup dates haven't been announced yet, but this is an interesting situation because from some of the reports that I've read, New Mexico intended on having a bye week in their first week of this revised schedule, but instead the conference selected to have them play Boise State in these 2-game series, which we're seeing now this season. So this was essentially postponed and called off. New Mexico staff felt that they don't have enough practice under their belts for their players to be ready. So that will be made up at some point. I'll be curious to see how that schedule fits into both of what Boise State has going on, also New Mexico. But much like San Jose State, another team that's had to deal with relocation, a lack of practice, and haven't been able to play a game to this point yet.
Yeah, and we had New Mexico State associate head coach James Miller on All Access Sports Media with the JUCO Hoops Insider. Similar show, we talk about JUCO hoops, and he mentioned that they're living basically in Arizona right now for the season. They're basically living there in a resort, just basically trying to figure out how they can play games. And because New Mexico has such strict rules with their government right now and how they're regulating things, they just wanted to make sure that they had the best chance to move forward this season. I don't know exactly how that affects New Mexico. I know New Mexico Lobos football team is doing something similar, playing out of state. Any last thoughts on New Mexico just before we kind of move on to our next team?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to monitor with how this whole relocation process goes. And I think at the end of the day, it just all determines what it's all based on what these COVID numbers are like. And New Mexico's taken a really strict stance on preventing possible COVID spread. And that's been the reason why teams have had to relocate and why there's been a practice. So you have to wonder how long a team like this can be in a bubble type environment, whether it be for a week or for a few weeks or maybe up to a month. But until the COVID numbers drop, I think that's kind of the status quo. But with the schedule, the league schedule coming up here pretty quick, if these games aren't being able to fit in, then it really disrupts what the whole league schedule looks like, because you have every team that has New Mexico on their schedule is going to be impacted in some way.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that plays out. Again, the football team found a way to kind of figure out how to move forward. So I would imagine the basketball team will too, being such a storied program and such a place that cares so much about basketball and kind of how their success goes. So we'll talk last about our last couple teams, starting with the U, just by kind of coincidence. But UNLV and Utah State, 2 teams picked in the top 4 preseason by yourself. Talk about UNLV. They played last night. They played Montana State early as well. They've had a couple losses that were not expected, especially in the fashion that they were. Talk a little bit about UNLV. We know they're talented. We know that Coach will get it going. He's done a great job there, but just kind of off to a slow start so far.
Yeah, it has been a slow start. And the Wednesday opener against Montana State, I think on paper you look at that matchup and think that should be a pretty comfortable win for UNLV. But Montana State's a team that I really like this season. They have quite a bit of talent on that roster with Jabril Bello, particularly, who had a really good performance in that one. But the fact here is that UNLV has been pretty uncompetitive in both of the second halves of these matchups. They were beaten pretty badly by Montana State in that second half. And then also against North Carolina in the first matchup of that Maui Invitational in Asheville, led 13-0 out of the gates. We're hitting some nice shots, and Bryce Hamilton was getting it going. But they just went cold, really struggled to defend, and UNC really turned things up. And it got out of hand quick. The tides really turned in that one, and so now UNLV starting things off 0-2 with pretty tough losses, both of them being by double digits. They have a matchup again tonight against Alabama. I'll be curious how that one goes because Alabama is also in the same situation. They were beaten up pretty badly by Stanford last night. So you hope that this team can get things going. They have a lot of talent on this roster, as you said, but it's got to come to fruition.
And we know it sometimes takes
I think you're on mute.
Yeah, so we know that sometimes it takes time to get going. And again, this is such a non-normal year. So we don't know what things are going on behind the scenes that may have affected things. Ultimately you're just judged on wins and losses, and that's the hard part. From their side, from our side, it's easy just to look at it and say, well, they're off to a slow start, something's wrong. Well, it's a challenging year for everybody. And again, we know they have the talent, we know they have the ability to coach. We know that they'll get their culture exactly where they want it to be, but it's just a challenging year for everybody, just trying to figure out how to make things work. And again, and you can get hot at any time, as we've seen many teams be able to do. Another team that's really good that got off to a slow start as well is Utah State. Let's talk a little bit about Utah State and share some of your thoughts that you saw from them. Yeah,
kind of a similar situation as UNLV. A team that I like quite a bit heading into the season, particularly with their front court, Justin Bean, Namias Queta, Alfonso Anderson, those types of guys. The VCU game was particularly interesting because the Aggies started off strong, and later in the second half, VCU just blew right by them and went on this long run. And VCU wound up winning this game by 16, even though they trailed for much of the first half. So that was tough out of the gates with these games being played in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And it was a similar circumstance against South Dakota State, 83-59 loss for the Aggies. And it's not particularly what this team had in mind, I think, at the South Dakota trip. But as you mentioned earlier, every program is dealing with things differently. And it's a roster that's going to feature a lot of new guys. Marco Anthony's been good out of the stretch. The Virginia transfer, Raleigh Wooster, freshman, is also getting quite a few minutes, and also Stephen Ashworth. So a lot of new guys who are being thrown into the mix, and it was nice to see them pick up that win against Northern Iowa, which expects to be a really good mid-major team. They won that one by double digits. So 1-2, it's a mixed bag in South Dakota, but overall, I think that you did see some positive signs out of this team. Need to tighten some things up defensively, get more shots to fall, and then I think they'll be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, another guy, Marco Anthony. Again, I got to shout out my Texas guys. People that don't like that, sorry. I just got to represent for my home. But, recruited Marco as well. Got to know him quite a bit. And even in the transfer portal before he went to Utah State, was heavily involved with just some conversations with him and just trying to help him make a great decision because, those transfer decisions can be tough. So happy for him that he got going his I think it was his third game that he got going and really had a big breakout performance. I think he'll have a great year there. And what a great pickup for them to be able to have a guy with the pedigree of of being in that Virginia program, but kind of came up in Texas as a guy with a chip on his shoulder, just kind of a winner, rugged kid that not afraid to compete in any moment, any time. So definitely excited for him to get going. And again, I think all these teams, as you have new guys and you lose major pieces from your puzzle from the year before, it just takes some time to kind of figure out how to make everything work. It's not as easy as just that minute rice that you can put in the microwave or whatever it may be. It's not quite as easy as the Hot Pocket. So I know sometimes fans want it that way, but it doesn't always go that way. And we know both UNLV and Utah State will kind of get things turned around as the season goes on. So, we'll take any questions. I don't know if anybody has any. Always feel free to put your questions live. We'll talk a little bit about just going forward overall for the league, what you kind of see. We go every other week here with Mountain West Insider. So next week we won't be on. We'll be on Heat Check with Eli, and we'll talk a little bit about Heat Check and what that is. But before we do that, what do you think about kind of upcoming for the Mountain West? What's your what do you see? What do you expect? What are you hoping to kind of find out in this next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think the first thing worth mentioning here is just the status of each of the 11 teams. We did have JR on to speak about Colorado State's situation. Fresno State is also on pause. So keeping an eye on when those teams return, when their projected return date will be key going forward because you need all 11 in action to make sure this conference schedule happens. So that will be worth noting. And then you also have a few good non-conference matchups coming up. Utah State and Boise State both have BYU as their next game, and the Cougars are going to be solid. They're not going to give up any easy victories, and it's a chance for both of these programs, the Aggies and Broncos, to get going after they've had a little bit of a tough start, and that's going to be a good measuring stick test for them. And then also Nevada taking on a San Francisco team that beat Virginia. That one will be worth watching as well. So some good tests coming up for a lot of these teams, and then down the road you have San Diego State with their gauntlet of a schedule continuing. So a lot of different things to watch in the conference, and has been on a theme on this show is just the overall outlook of these teams dealing with the circumstances of COVID, dealing with a lot of new guys coming in, whether they be transfers or recruits, just a lot of moving parts, but everyone's managing the best they can, and we'll see what happens on the floor these coming weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And talk a little bit about Heat Check. Of course, you can follow us at All Access _SM, which is the sports media. And you can also follow our Coach's Corner and our podcast there, which is All Access _CC on Instagram and on Twitter. And then on YouTube and Facebook, it's just All Access Network, which covers both All Access Sports Media and Coach's Corner. So excited to have you guys on. Please continue to subscribe. Please continue to support. And let's talk a little bit about Heat Check. And next week, you'll find the same time in the morning, Tuesdays, talking some Heat Check basketball. So I'll let Eli kind of close with talking Heat Check. We'll do a last-minute rundown of Mountain West, and then we'll let you guys have the rest of your day.
Yeah, so heatcheckcbb.com is my home. It's a website that I built over the spring, and we're focused on national college basketball coverage and making sure to give love to each league and making sure everyone gets covered, not just the Dukes and Kentuckys of the world, but also different teams that you see out of the mid and low major ranks. And really excited to have Brian on board. It's a team that we think highly of, that knows a lot about the game of college basketball and different teams and programs. And the Heat Check show that we have going on every other Tuesday, which we'll have a week from now, focusing on all of the big topics in the sport, some of the teams that have broken out, maybe some players who've had some really good individual performances, and just the overall news, because there is a ton right now with COVID-19 and all these schedule changes. So really excited for that bi-weekly show, as mentioned, as we flip-flop between Heat Check and Mountain West. So really excited to have Brian on board and getting that thing going.
Yeah, excited to be a part, and again, transition to this new lane of sports media and having a lot of fun with it, and just being able to, just cover a game that I've spent a lot of time as a coach, 15 to 17 years as a coach, and now on the other side of the lines, and just doing our best to cover the game that we all love in college basketball. So thanks so much for tuning in. You can catch us in 2 weeks on Mountain West Hoops Insider. We had some awesome guests. Thank you so much to J.D. Pollock from San Diego State, J.R. Blount from Colorado State, and then Coach Felton from Fresno State. So awesome show today. Really appreciate you guys again, and we just look forward to continuing to cover the Mountain West and continue to have more quality guests and talk more great basketball. So thanks so much, everybody, and be